lives and earn enough money to be able to live. Those are the entrepreneurs that we can be supporting. And then if people are earning excess, I mean, how many swimming pools does a billionaire need? I think they might as well put that money into...
Who are we talking about? This is some fictitious billionaire.
No, it's not. It's literally...
Where are these people? Most of the people you're affecting are entrepreneurs trying to make $1 million. They're not trying to make $1 billion. They're trying to start a business.
We're talking about billionaires.
They're all in the US.
We're talking about...
Have you noticed where all they are? But what about the ordinary entrepreneur starting a business, taking a lot of risk? 9 out of 10 fail. They take the risk. If they're lucky enough to make some money, you want to hammer them even more. They pay capital gains tax and income tax, they spend it and they pay VAT. I mean, and then they pay inheritance tax.
I'm very happy.
They're lucky if their kids see a dime.
Very happy for us to be encouraging those entrepreneurs.
Right, but it doesn't sound like it. It doesn't sound like it. I haven't seen it by this.
What is up, everybody? Harry here. This is a Sky News panel debate between Jeremy Corbyn, entrepreneur Richard Farleigh, formerly of Dragon's Den, and MP Polly, arguing about billionaires, wealth taxes, and whether Britain's tax system is fair. Corbyn wants a wealth tax and points to Scandinavia as proof. High living standards don't require billionaire-level inequality. Farleigh warns that taxing wealth just drives entrepreneurs and investment abroad. Pointing to the Soviet Union as a cautionary tale, this is a genuinely contested economic policy debate with real evidence and real disagreement on both sides. So I'll try to lay out the actual arguments fairly rather than just declare a winner. Get subscribed if that's useful to you. Let's get into it.
55 billionaires from the UK in the latest list. Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Terrible. And they're growing up each year, the number of them. And the number of global billionaires is growing up. Global inequality is rising. Here we are, 21st century, 25% of the world's population are hungry and short of food. They're not all starving, but they're short of food with no guarantee of being able to live properly. Inequality is rising, homelessness is rising, absolute poverty is rising, and we have a tax system that actually encourages the growth of the billionaire class. And so this isn't recent. This has gone on for probably ever since the sort of neoliberal economics took over with Reagan and Thatcher, and it's been a progression. And the Oxfam report on this is quite devastating. Can't we just look at the world on the needs of people rather than extolling the wonders of these billionaires?
OK. Richard, is it a good or a bad thing?
Well, I would have voted for Jeremy a few years ago, ironically. You know, I think the inequality of wealth is absolutely terrible. Sure. Some very basic problems. The price of, when I was growing up in the 80s, the price of a home was 4 times average salary, and now it's 8 to 10 to 11. So that's terrible if you want to buy a home. It used to be the dream for a young person. Graduate or any type of employment, for youth employment, is terrible. You go and get a law degree, you do whatever, you get an apprenticeship. It's still very hard to get a job. So the dream for young people is really dying. I've got 2 kids in their 20s. They've both gone to Australia to work. So I have a lot of sympathy. And I came through the care system myself. I spent time in an orphanage. I'm from the left, would be my natural situation. However,
what's that?
however, and I think it's admirable, your position. However, we've seen the experiment, and call it simply the Soviet Union if you want. They tried it for 50 years, where you really, unfortunately, it doesn't encourage anyone. It just discourages people. And we might talk about Elon Musk, how terrible he has this wealth. But on the other hand, he's put all these satellites in the sky. He's put Teslas on the streets. He's created things, and that having those things, having satellites makes us all richer, makes us all better off. Having his cars makes us all better off. There's a period where there'll be a terrible inequality, which he will make more money, unbelievable amounts of money. But if you discourage that, if you discourage people creating things, then unfortunately they don't get created. So it'd be fine. You'll get rid of the billionaires, but no one else will be poor because no one will be creating businesses and creating jobs. So unfortunately, we've seen it in practice. We've seen wealth taxes tried by lots of countries and abandoned because they don't work. So unfortunately, the problem's there, but I don't see that being the solution.
Jeremy?
Underfunding of public services, underfunding of health, underfunding of social security, terrible levels of inequality. And all these billionaires, one day they all need a hospital, one day they all need a fire service, one day they all need a paramedic. Who provides that? But the rest of us who pay our taxes in the proper way. So we have these ludicrous tax havens around the world that the billionaires thrive from, and these unbelievable levels of wealth of individuals. You quote the Soviet Union. Well, it's gone for quite a long time. It had many problems. I wasn't totally enamoured of everything there, but they did at least provide housing and work. But then look at the Scandinavian countries that do not have these levels of inequality, do have a very high quality of life and a high level of public services. So it can be done. But we also have the global inequality between the southern countries and the industrialised North America and Europe, which also has to be closed. What we're doing is just worshipping billionaires at the expense of the needs of millions.
Polly, are we worshipping billionaires, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I certainly not. That bunch of blokes look like something out of Succession and made me feel slightly ill. Look, you might think that it's great about the satellites, and obviously it's important for us to be able to get electric vehicles on the streets. But Elon Musk has basically bought himself a platform in order to be able to spew hate across the world. So I think there are other aspects.
We're playing the man now. We're not playing the system.
No,
we're talking about billionaires in general.
Well, yeah, but
billionaires in general. Wealth creation.
If you can't spot what those three guys have got in common, then I think that's quite interesting in and of itself.
But I'd love them to come here. I'd love them to come here, spend a lot on VAT, buy property, pay stamp duty.
I'm very
employ
happy.
People. I'd love them to be here.
I'm very happy that we have put taxes on private jets, which will make a difference to them, private schools, it will probably make a difference then if they've got kids, and private equity. We've also increased the council tax for properties over £2 million. £2 million worth of property. Now, I know what you're talking about with the London market, and it makes it very difficult for people to get on the market, on the ladder. At the other end, people have got houses of that value. Making sure that we get money into the exchequer so that people with the broadest shoulders are paying towards the things that we all rely on, including the roads and the hospitals and the schools. That is a good thing to do.
You're right about getting money in. But what you're not counting is the money that's not coming in and the money that's never going to come in.
Do you know what?
And the
People of this country will pay their taxes.
When I moved here, I wouldn't move here now. I'm Australian. I wouldn't move here now because of the tax regime. There's a hatred of success. Right? The story is not being told.
I don't think that's true, Richard.
And also, there are people leaving.
Let's just say why.
The people leaving aren't counted, but the opportunity cost of people not coming. Elon Musk won't move here. You don't want him, but any other successful entrepreneur is not going to move here right now. I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
Jeremy, the hatred of success.
Business confidence is up. Investment in this country is up. That's not true, Richard.
Would have been up anyway.
It's fine if you don't want to come, but seriously.
Why do you say there's no hatred of success?
People admire those that achieve a great deal. Doctors, scientists, writers, artists,
but
musicians,
not billionaires.
But not entrepreneurs.
They don't necessarily admire people whose sole virtue appears to be the ability to make a great deal of money for themselves.
If I start a business and fail, that's OK. But if I start a business, hell, if I succeed.
Well, so it's going to
if you start a business and pay people properly and create jobs and pay taxes properly,
they do.
That's not a big problem.
They do.
But the problem we do have is we have a taxation system that actually makes it very easy for you exponentially to grow when you
what are the loopholes? Can you tell me about the loopholes? I'd like to use them. What are the loopholes?
I want to Bradley's view on billionaires.
I mean, in many ways, this is quite surreal. I've heard sort of a almost defence of sort of communism in the Soviet Union here. I've heard, a parallel universe where business confidence is allegedly up.
And we've got investment up in this country.
And that's the absolute opposite of what businesses across my constituency are telling me. But let's just acknowledge two realities. So one is that at the minute in this country, it's the top 10% of earners that pay around 60% of the taxes. And those who are particularly wealthy, who have put something on the line to create a success of their business, whether it's a small business, large business, they are often highly mobile. And if other jurisdictions and other countries have more lucrative tax arrangements, don't be surprised if they leave. The UK is a country that should not be afraid of saying, we want to support those who want to get on in life. Instead, what we've seen under this government is increased welfare dependency and those who want to take risks and create wealth feeling that actually they're stigmatised and they have other options to go elsewhere.
Polly, what do you say to that?
Well, I would say patriotic people pay their taxes, and I know that we need to be ensuring and encouraging entrepreneurs, which is exactly what we need in my community. But it's not about people making billions and billions. People mostly who are entrepreneurs, and this is where I would definitely part company with Jeremy, want to be able to do something that gives them meaning in their lives and earn enough money to be able to live. Those are the entrepreneurs that we can be supporting. supporting. And then if people are earning excess, I mean, how many swimming pools does a billionaire need? I think they might as well put that money into...
But who are we talking about? This is some fictitious
No,
billionaire
it's not.
living...
It's literally...
Where are these people?
Those three
Most
people
of the
that were
people
listed
you're
on
affecting
there.
are entrepreneurs trying to make a million. They're not trying to make a billion.
I know,
They're trying
we're
to start a
talking about
business.
billionaires'
They're all in the US.
We're talking about...
Have you noticed where all they are? But what about the ordinary entrepreneur starting a business, taking a lot of risk? 9 out of 10 fail. They take the risk. If they're lucky enough to make some money, you want to hammer them even more. They pay capital gains tax and income tax, they spend it and they pay VAT. I mean, and then they pay inheritance tax.
I'm very, very happy.
They're lucky if their kids see a dime.
I'm very happy for us to be encouraging those entrepreneurs.
Right,
but
it doesn't sound like it. I haven't seen it by this government.
What you're talking about with people with spare cash, like billionaires, should be paying their taxes.
I just see people leaving.
Watch the Scandinavia point closely, because it's the sharpest exchange and worth examining from both directions rather than declaring it a knockout for either side. Corbyn's argument is that Nordic countries combine high public spending, strong social outcomes, and low inequality without economic dysfunction. A fair empirical point, since those countries do rank highly on quality of life and public services. What complicates the comparison, and Farleigh doesn't quite make this case himself, is that Nordic countries generally don't run wealth taxes on the ultra-rich, the way Corbyn proposes. Several introduced and later abandoned exactly that policy, including Sweden and Denmark. Partly over capital flight concerns, their high tax take comes mostly from broad-based income and consumption taxes across the whole population, not concentrated wealth, taxes on billionaires. That nuance matters for evaluating whether Look at Scandinavia actually supports the specific policy on the table. Farleigh's capital flight argument deserves to be taken seriously rather than dismissed as elite panic because it's genuinely studied in public finance. Several European countries, including France, Germany, and the Nordic states above, implemented wealth taxes and later repealed most of them, citing enforcement difficulty and wealthy residents relocating. How large that effect actually is and whether it outweighs the revenue gained is unsettled among economists, not resolved definitively either way. Corbyn's response that global tax coordination could reduce the incentive to relocate is also a genuine position with real momentum, evidenced by the OECD's Global Minimum Corporate Tax Framework. Though that's a much easier problem to solve for corporate profit than for personal wealth. The top 10% pay 60% of taxes statistic Polly cites is accurate for UK income tax, and it's worth being precise about what it does and doesn't show. It reflects how progressive income tax already is on paper, but says nothing about wealth, taxation, capital gains treatment, or the loopholes Corbyn references, which sit in a different part of the tax code. Citing that figure against a wealth tax specifically answers an adjacent question, not the one being asked. Where Corbyn's case is strongest is pointing out that billionaires depend on publicly funded infrastructure, healthcare, and education just as much as anyone else. A fair observation about a shared burden, regardless of where you land on tax. Policy, where Farleigh's case is strongest, is noting that entrepreneurial risk-taking by ordinary business owners, most of whom never come close to billionaire wealth, shouldn't be conflated with taxing extreme fortunes. A distinction Corbyn's rebuttal actually concedes rather than disputes. Neither side fully engages with the strongest version of the other's argument. Corbyn doesn't address the specific historical record of European wealth tax repeals beyond saying, give it a go, but which understates a real policy track record worth reckoning with directly. Farleigh doesn't meaningfully engage with the distinction Polly and Corbyn both raise between billionaire wealth and ordinary entrepreneurial income, instead treating any tax increase on the very wealthy as functionally equivalent to Soviet-style collectivization, a much larger leap than the actual policy on the table. What's left standing after both sides have made their case is a genuine, unresolved trade-off. How much revenue a wealth tax could realistically raise once relocation and avoidance are accounted for, weighed against the real and rising concerns about inequality and underfunded public services that both speakers, in their different ways, agree are serious problems. That's a legitimate question for voters and policymakers to weigh, not one this debate settles either way.